In today's English class, we are going to take up the second lesson from your English literature book, The Master Artist. Before I start explaining you the lesson, I want you all to open your textbooks and I want you to be ready with your pencils. As I explain you the meaning of new words, you just have to underline them and write the correct meaning for that word. Yesterday in the class, I told you the summary of the lesson and I hope that you might have, understood a little bit of it and you might have enjoyed listening to the summary. Okay. So now line by line I am going to read the lesson and I'll explain you. Okay. So there is a person, a French master artist whose name is Monsieur Sinilabe, and he is called by an Italian rich man whose name is Giuliano Bartoli. He calls him to paint a portrait of his. But Monsieur Sinilabe, he refuses to do so by saying that he decided to retire. But when he sees disappointment on Giuliano Bartoli's face, he agrees, but he puts some terms and conditions for painting. So what are those terms and conditions? Is he actually able to paint and make the portrait? Is he really successful in doing so? What is the result? We are going to find out after reading our text. Before we begin, if you have your book open, page number 9, you can see at the left side in the bottom, there are few pronunciations of the words. Actually, in this chapter, there are French and Italian names. And they have got different kind of pronunciation, so we can easily pronounce by seeing the words which are there in your text left hand side in the bottom. Let's practice those words before we begin our chapter. Okay. Now can you see the first word of the chapter in first paragraph, and you can see one star there with that word, and next you can see with 2 stars and then with 3 stars. Okay, so these are the words given in the bottom of the page, and how to pronounce these words we are going to learn now. Okay, the first word is to be pronounced like Monsieur. Monsieur. You can say again Monsieur. You keep repeating this word at least for 3 to 4 times. Okay, Monsieur. And the second name that we are going to pronounce correctly is Sinilabe. 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 And the third one is Giuliano. Giuliano. And the last word given is Signor. Signor. So, as we come across these words, we will learn to pronounce them again. Okay, so let us start with the reading of the chapter. Monsieur Senelave had been a master artist of his day. Here, master artist of his day means a very well known and very famous artist in his time. Okay, you just underline and write down very famous in his time. And in 1392 was ready to retire. So he was ready to retire, to give up the profession, because he had grown old maybe. When in the month of May, Giuliano Bertoli, a rich Italian patron, sent for him. So, rich Italian patron. A patron is a person who supports artists by giving them lot of money. So, Giuliano Bertoli was a rich Italian patron and he sent for him. Sent for him means he called him. On his arrival, Bertoli said, "I would like a portrait of myself on the wall of my dining hall, where everyone can see it. Could you paint it? The wall is 20 feet tall." So he told him he wanted a portrait of himself on this very tall wall where everyone could see it. And he asked him, "Could you paint it? As the wall is 20 feet tall. That means it's very, very big." Okay, so the portrait has to be very big. Second paragraph. Monsieur l'Abbé looked thoughtful for a moment and then shook his head. So he thought for a moment and he shook his head. "I'm sorry, but I don't think so. I'm ready to retire, so I'm not available for hire." So he said that I'm already ready to retire and I'm not available for hire. Here hire means to take somebody on rent. However, seeing the disappointment in Signor Bertoli's eyes, he continued, "Well, there's a possibility if you think you can allow me to use my abilities to the fullest." So here children, Signor is a word, an Italian word for Mr. So the same way, Monsieur is a French word for Mr. So he saw disappointment in Bertoli's eyes and he continued, "Well, there's a possibility if you think you can allow me to use my abilities to the fullest." Then he says, "Okay, there's one possibility that I may think that I start doing your portrait. And that one condition is that you must let me use my abilities to the fullest. If you let me find out how far I can go as an artist." And further he says that if you let me paint in my own way, how far I can go as an artist, how far I can achieve something as an artist. So then I can think of. Not for money, mind you, but for food and bed instead. He says, mind you, I'm not working for money. Just I need food and a bed to stay. That's it. And my privacy where I can, leisurely work on your portrait. You need not even pose. He also says that there's no need for you to pose for me. So children, you might have seen, if you want your portrait to be done, you have to sit for long hours, okay, to get your portrait done. But here Giuliano says that you need not sit, okay. I have captured your face, your whole body, and I'm going to do it my way. He says that my memory is excellent. My memory is very sharp. He says that I can see your portrait in mind. I can imagine. And no need for you to waste your precious time. But I insist, Signor Bartoli, that when I work, your portrait must remain hidden, even from you. This is the second condition he puts. He says, while I'm working on your portrait, it should be completely a secret mission. Even you must not come and disturb me, or you must not come and see what I am painting. So these are the two conditions he put in front of Bartoli. So what is the first condition? Bartoli should allow him to paint according to him, using his own knowledge. And the second condition is no one would come and disturb him. Even Bartoli could not come and see it. So let us see whether Bartoli agrees to his terms and conditions now. Third paragraph. How strange, thought the patron. But he also thought about how highly the artist had been recommended. So he found his terms and conditions very strange. Then he thought that this was a very highly recommended artist. He was very famous. Many people had recommended his name. Of course, he said, anything you wish, but I insist at least upon paying you something for your efforts. Let's draw up a contract. So he says, I agree to whatever you say. Okay, let's sign a contract. What do you mean by draw up a contract? Children, when we, when two parties decide to do something, there will be a contract, and both the parties, they sign, okay, and they agree to some terms and conditions. That is called as contract. Let's now move on to fourth paragraph. Now a glint came to Monsieur l'Abbe's eyes as he gazed upon that 20-foot tall wall and thought of all that space. Such a wonderful space to give his imagination wings. So a sort of shine came into his eyes as he looked up the wall, as he gazed up the wall. A sort of shine came to his eyes. Why was that shine there in his eyes? Because he thought he would get ample of time to bring wings to his imagination. He can work freely and he can portrait, he can paint something really creative. So here he felt that he would, work very freely so that he could paint the portrait the way he liked. Because unknown to Signor Bartoli, or indeed anyone else, for all of his career of 45 years, Monsieur l'Abbé had longed to paint in his own way. And what way was that? Certainly not the popular styles of the times. Now he thinks that nobody knew till now, not even neither Bartoli nor anyone knew that all through his career, 45 long years, he wished badly, he longed for 45 years to paint on his own way, in his own style, but he was not given this freedom. He didn't get the chance to paint according to his own way, according to his own imagination. And what was the reason for that? His imagination did not match. He had a very different style of painting, totally different style, which was not at all famous those days. That time the people, they demanded something else, a very different kind of painting. But here Giuliano's style of painting was very different, and he thought that yes, now I can do justice to my work and I can paint according to my own wish. Monsieur l'Abbé had hungered to break free of restraints, but the guild, his craft and livelihood, would never have allowed it. The guild is an organization of office. The livelihood, the craft, all these things, to earn money, all these things limited him, to bring out his creativity, imagination. He never took a chance to paint in his own ways. So this was the first time, he was getting a chance, he was getting freedom to paint in his own ways. So he was very happy for that. So he followed their rules, although he was never proud of it. Of course, he didn't reveal this to Signor Bartoli. So when he became very famous artist, he followed all the rules of the organizations. But he became very famous, but he was never proud of himself. Okay. But he did not tell this to Signor Bartoli. Reveal means to show or tell. So he did not tell, all this to Signor Bartoli. Para 5. Signing the contract, they sealed the agreement. So they drew up a contract and they, stamped it, and both the parties, they signed, and they, were into this work now. Immediately, the master artist threw a high curtain in front of the wall, a curtain through which Signor Bartoli could not see at all. He tried to peek, but Monsieur l'Abbé insisted on total privacy for his artistic techniques. So the first thing he did after signing the contract was threw a big curtain in front of the wall. What was the reason for that? Yes, remember the second condition. He laid, a condition that nobody would see what portrait he's painting. Not even, Signor Bartoli. So that's why he put up a big and a thick curtain, so nobody could peek into it. A week passed. How is it coming along? Asked the hopeful Signor Bartoli. So after a week passed, after a week was over, Signor Bartoli was very eager to know how his portrait was going on. So he just asked him, how is it coming along? So children, I'll stop this lesson here, and I want you all to go through this, 2 pages, read them at least 2 times and learn the pronunciation of the new words. If you are new to this channel and if you haven't subscribed my channel, please subscribe it, children. And the second part of the lesson is very interesting, so I'm going to post that very soon. Bye bye.